start by looking at the phone here. It's a Huawei P10 standard version and has a cracked screen. I ordered two new batteries and a replacement screen from eBay. Links will be in the description below. Delivery was quite quick this time, and it looks like I got the right parts. Always check before you start assembling your phone. The other battery that I have bought is for a P30 that I use as my personal phone. This is my daughter's phone. So start with the two pentaloop screws that are beside the bottom end of the phone. This is my first go at taking one of these apart. Since I've had apart a few other Huawei devices before, I'm not utterly scared or suspicious on how it will go. I think it will go quite well. Yeah, always turn off devices before you assemble them. It's just a good way of maintaining the quality of them afterwards. And I also remembered that I hadn't taken out the SIM tray out of it. So I do that now, struggling to find a SIM tray ejector, and eventually I will pop out the SIM tray too. Anyway, these pentaloop screws, two small black ones, easy to forget, easy to lose them. I'll put mine aside. I'm having this blue-ish microfiber cloth on the table, more to protect the table from scratching rather than protecting the device, because these devices are really super sturdy. Yeah, now I've ejected the SIM tray and I started to scrape along the edges. They are kind of tricky to get a good hold of, but now I finally got a starting there, and now I use the plectrum just to slide along, and it clicks apart quite easily. Don't rip the halves apart, because you have a ribbon cable between the two halves of the phone. And now I have them separated. If I were only going for the battery, it would have been a quite easy fix. Now I'm also going for the display, so it's a 2-in-1 repair. So I'm removing the retention clips here that holds down the ribbon cables. So almost all ribbon cables are locked in place with a small metal retainer. Kind of a clever construction, I really like it. It's very well built. Afterwards I realized I took a few too many screws off. I didn't have to remove the screws on the top end of the phone. I only needed to remove the screws on the bottom end of the phone. But it didn't take me that much longer to do, and it didn't hurt any components doing it, so no components were injured during this assembly. Well, actually one were. I had to get rather rough with the battery to get it out. I used a long plastic, I think it's a car trim remover, so it's like a pry bar all in plastic. Good advice is avoid using metal tools on these type of devices, because they are easier to scratch with, and if you puncture a battery, it goes so much quicker to do so with a proper big metal screwdriver than with a nub or a blunt plastic tool. Here I'm struggling to find the place to begin to tear out the battery. Eventually on the left side there is a pull tab. There I had it and I pulled it out. And that side of the battery, it came loose quite easily, but the other side of the battery there is no pull tab, and it was quite kind of difficult to get it to release the glue. And there I have pried off, as you can see. And the battery is pretty deformed, so I went out and put it in a metal box that I have outside my house. And here we continue with disassembly of the lower part of the phone, taking off the microphone and the antenna board down there, trying to find an opening there on the speaker. Right now I'm trying to find an opening to get the screen to loosen. Then I remembered I read on iFixit that use an eye heater or an eye opener, but I brought out the heat gun and I ran it on the lowest setting that it has, and the majority of the glue is on the upside and on the downside of the phone. These phones are slightly waterproofed. They are not completely waterproof, so there are not that very many seals that you have to consider when you're working with them. Still always be careful for the black rubber seals. Make sure you get it back in the same place as they were when you disassemble and rebuild them. But it worked out well, I think. So now I've heated it up. I didn't use more time than I showed here, and constant movement so we don't overheat any areas, and it's not too hot to touch. And since I have a crack in the screen, I decided that this is probably the area that it will flex the most in. So some instructions say start at the bottom. I started here at the top just due to that crack in the screen, and I was quite successful in getting the prior tool in beneath the plastic and the plastic and the plastic tool between the screen and the frame. And since these screens are glass, be careful so they don't shatter and you hurt yourself. I've cut myself on glass screens more than once, and it's always unpleasant. So now we're working our way around it, and in not too long it will just snap off. Again, I used the plectrum here. Instructions also say that re-add some adhesive, and me being Swede, I first used Biltema brake parts cleaner to clean off the surfaces. It's incredible how dirt and grit always finds its way into even the most distant locations on a phone. So I cleaned off the frame with some cotton buds and some of this brake parts cleaner. Now some of you might think that I'm a bit too harsh with the parts, since I'm not wearing an ESD protection and since I'm doing this on a microfiber cloth. Remember that these phones survive in your pocket, in your clothes, in your jacket, day in and day out. They have connectors and everything exposed. They are just as conductive as the material that I'm working with here. So I'm not overly concerned that this will add any sparks or problems, and it works afterwards. Now I used some Carlson's Glister. It's just some universal contact glue. I put a few dabs on the top and bottom of the screen and pushed the parts together. I also used a small drip under the speaker assembly. It's a mono speaker in these phones. Now I'm trying to reconnect the cables. There goes the battery. For the battery I had some adhesive strips that were included in the packing with the batteries, so I used them. I used it off camera, unfortunately, and I put them on the frame, so when I push down the battery it will lock in place like that. Now it stays there even when I flip it over vertically. Didn't do that with the residual adhesive that was left there since before. And now I'm starting to put back the retaining brackets and the screws one by one. And of course I have to put a small plate in the bottom as well. This one I misaligned, so I had to remove it with the side and do it again. This one was a bit fiddly to get to latch in place, but it was no problems actually. Just some attention needed to get it to click in. And then all the extra screws up there that I took out without actually having to do so. Now I need to figure out which way to orient the parts before I click in the side buttons. Now I try to start it up before I push it together, and it certainly does, it works. So now I can clip it all in place and put back the two pentaloops at the bottom, and here we have it, and it works. It says that the thumb reader needs to be recalibrated, and that I understand it doesn't recognize this part, so